Good evening and welcome to the Board of Education regular meeting. It is February 26th. Are we in compliance with open meeting laws?
Yes, we are.
Would you please call the roll?
Carlin.
Here.
DeWitt.
Here.
Herzog.
Here.
Hess.
Here.
Smeltley.
Here.
Wright.
Here.
Wyman.
Here.
We have quorum.
Thank you. And tonight we have guests from Emmeline Cook. We have Anna Kentenhoven and Etta Pino. And ladies, if you would like to take your spots, they're going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. You can start anytime.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. It means a lot when students come. We're especially happy to have the principal with us tonight to tell you about all the good things that are happening in Emmeline Cook. Thank you. Have a great evening. We're out of here. And Mr. Rule, front and center. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Absolutely.
All right. So just to share some positive things going on at Emmeline Cook Elementary, coming up this next week, we're going to be having Emmeline Cook Book Club, where we've selected a book that is for everybody K through 5, and some of the passages are read for those students who are younger. And other than that, we've been going chapter by chapter and checking in and having some questions and activities related to that. Additionally, the following week, we're going to have 2 authors come in and meet with our kindergarten and first grade, and they're going to read through the books and then get to meet the authors.
Sounds great.
Can you share the names of the books in case some of us want to follow up?
I was looking tonight, I can't remember the name of the authors,
That's
but
all
the
right.
book that was chosen school-wide was Harry Potter.
Oh,
Nice.
very nice. Well, that'll
Thank
be a
you.
nice opportunity.
Excellent.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Rule? Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, now we have a public hearing on petitions for school board boundary changes, and I'd like to call that meeting to order. Mrs. Conrad?
So today we are going to be looking at petitions to alter school boundaries. This does not happen very often in school districts, so that was one of the questions that's been asked, is how often does this happen, and not very often. But to get us started with this, in the board packet was a summary of the petition to alter school boundaries. So the Oshkosh Area School District received 2 petitions to alter school boundaries, which is considered a small territory transfer. The Amro School District received 1 petition to alter school boundaries. So all 3 petitions are in front of the board to look at tonight. There are deadlines and dates that go along with any of these petitions. All 3 petitions met the deadline of February 1st to be considered by the board, and then there was paperwork that was exchanged with DPI and each of the districts to make sure we had all of the information. So then, the school boards during the month of February, and here we are in the month of February, must give the petitioners an opportunity to speak and to receive information, and that is what we're doing here in the hearing tonight. Winnicott has already done that, Amro has done the hearing part, and will proceed, and Oshkosh will have theirs actually tonight. And so then, after this has been considered, if this is granted, the petition to interchange the parcels would go into effect July 1st of this year. And if if the outcome is not what the petitioner would like, they can appeal to a boards of appeal through the state of Wisconsin. If you go in there into the packet, there are criteria here that the appeals board would look at. We included the criteria in here to help the board make a decision as they started to look at whether they were going to grant or deny each of the petitions. So let's start with the first petition. The first petition is to alter school district boundaries, in other words, attached to Winneconne School District. The petition was submitted by Timothy and Lindsay Scott-Berg, and there was also an amendment that was sent to the petition yesterday by the Town of Vinland clerk. The petition came in on time. There is a pupil count of 12 that is in the territory or the parcels that are being asked to be detached from Oshkosh and attached to Winneconne. The property value of the proposed detachment is $13,748,500. Communication has been ongoing and back and forth with the petitioners, and we are giving a recommendation that there is going to be an impact on tax impact on removing the parcels. If we go further into here, I have this one up here and we can go further into the maps, but this is one, it shows the area that is being asked to be detached, and it shows the Town of Oshkosh, Town of Vinland, and the Oshkosh Area School District. This is another view, and I can go into more detail, where the pink is the Oshkosh Area School District, and the tan area is the Winneconne School District.
Excuse me,
Go
could
ahead.
you go to that slide where it shows Town of Oshkosh in blue?
Mm-hmm.
And then right above it is Town of Vinland. Where does, is that part of the Winneconne School District, or is that part of the Oshkosh District?
So this in blue
Right,
is
is
the
Oshkosh.
Oshkosh Area School District.
Okay, and what about Town of Vinland? What district does that belong to? That's right above there.
Yeah,
in
right
the
above
red.
here, if you go in here, that's Winneconne.
Okay, thank you.
So if you go into this pink area is Oshkosh Area School District, and then this brown tan area is all the Winneconne
Got it.
Area School
Thank you.
District.
Thank you.
So if I may, I would like to click on this. If we go to, first of all, this is a little bit more detail for this. In here, the detachment that is being proposed has a neighborhood that's been circled, and I will open that map in just a second. And then it also has the parcels that are in red, dotted in red, along with the blue X. That was what was amended and sent to us yesterday. And so this would be the area that is described in here to be detached.
So the blue X was the thing that was added?
That was added yesterday by the Town of Vinland clerk.
And the red dots represent what?
The red dots are each of the parcels that are inside of the petition. And I have a separate map for the neighborhood because it's so dense, and I'll show you that in just a second. So you have the parcels here that are going down the east from this parcel in Brooks Road all the way over to Gibbs Road. And then this one property on Gibbs Road, and then also this farm area that goes up to the border of Winneconne, the Winneconne School District.
Okay, so the area that's circled in red, that
Yes.
has what appear to be streets.
Correct.
Okay, so the area north of that, is that undeveloped land or farmland or?
This is farmland, and it was not, those parcels were not included in the petition.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that clarification.
Mhm. So if I can go into the neighborhood map, as you can see in the neighborhood, every single one of the red dotted parcels was included in the petition. And so it does include the entire neighborhood,
But not the farm parcels to the north?
not the farm parcels to the north.
Okay, thank you.
So any other questions on petition 1?
And we can discuss this further when we get into voting.
Correct. And the other piece is then we will also have an opportunity for anybody here to speak on this, to come up here in just a few moments.
And I guess, so those kids right now would go to Oaklawn, home schools, Oaklawn, Vel, and North?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
The second petition to alter school district boundaries is attached to Amro School District, so it would be detached from Oshkosh and attached to Amro School District. The petition was submitted by Katina Malki, the Malki family. It was submitted in the time frame, and there are 3 children that reside on that territory. The property value of the proposed detachment is $208,000. We've been in communication with the Malki family and have been in communication with the Amro School District. The recommendation is to not detach, we're making the recommendation not to detach. And then you can see this is where the property is. This is one view of it. The yellow means this is the lakeside boundary. So the elementary children would go to Lakeside, they would go to South Park, and then they would go to West High School. Here is a parcel view of this territory, and the parcel is listed, is right here. And it butts right up against an Amro School District boundary. And the third petition.
Can I ask about the second petition?
Sure.
So, in the first of those 2 maps, it shows, it almost looks like it's a rectangle that then creates a little island of Oshkosh. The other map doesn't really show that. Does it create an island or not?
It does not create an, it like dots in, so that's why this is it's hard to see from like the district perspective, so then we pull down the parcels, and so it creates this indent in there.
Okay.
Almost like a peninsula inside.
Okay.
And then the last one is a petition to alter school district boundaries detached from Amro. This was actually sent to the Amro School District, and then you are now looking at it. There currently are 0 students that are within that territory, and the property value would be attached to the Oshkosh Area School District. The property value is $159,200. And if you go here, this is where the property is. It's not adjacent or butting up against the Oshkosh Area School District boundaries. And here is the parcel view. This is the parcel. Pink is the Oshkosh Area School District, and green is the Amro School District. Our recommendation is to not approve because this truly does create an island.
Can I just ask a general question about the maps, especially the ones down in the Amro area?
Yeah.
But it shows in both of them. Where, like, the town of Utica, maybe the town of Utica is just the one that's in a weird shape, but do we know if all of these weird indentations have been part of previous reallocations or switching around of districts, or is this just the town of Utica being jig-jaggy?
It's part of it is the town of Utica being jig-jaggy, and the other piece is that during this, a lot of this was farmland at one time, and so as the farmland was parceled off to be either put into homes or like start into subdivisions, this is where you start to get these like jigsaw pieces into school districts.
And so just one gets added one place, so that happened both in Winneconne area and in Amro
Right.
area.
This hasn't happened recently. In 2018, and then we did the correction in 2023. We had a farm, there was farmland that was converted over into a housing area, and the boundaries were not like properly surveyed, and so there was like inaccuracies, and so they asked to do that when it was shifted from farmland over to like home properties. So we haven't done this in a while.
Is there any interest in doing a more full-scale review of it to make sure that, to try to stabilize it, or do we think that this is not going to likely to become an issue?
So this is the mechanism for individuals with land or territories to say, I want to attach to one school district or I want to attach to other. So owners can petition to do that, or school districts, from school district to school district, can have conversations and initiate boundary transfers.
And do the municipalities have any say in that, or have any interest in modifying?
The municipalities just say this is what the pieces are, because what we're really doing is shifting, are your property tax monies being funneled into X school district or Y school district?
Okay. We have, are you good, Julie?
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good if you are.
We look forward to having more questions later on.
Okay.
We now have the public hearing on petitions for school board boundary changes. We have some guidelines. Please clearly state your name and address, the city in which you live only, and the topic you wish to address. If you're acting as spokesperson for a particular group of individuals, please indicate the group that you represent. State clearly and concisely the matters of concern. Your time allotted is 3 minutes. And remember that use of specific names of district personnel can lead to legal liability. Okay, we have one speaker tonight, Mr. Scottberg.
I'm Tim Scottberg, City of Oshkosh, here to speak as the petitioner, and want to thank the school board and Ms. Conrad Peters for maintaining open communication throughout this process. I also want to make it clear that this petition is not driven by anger or frustration at the district for doing anything wrong. It is a genuine need to provide students in our small rural neighborhood in the town of Vinland with the education, transportation, and services they require in the district where they already attend school. The vast majority of students from the homes listed in this petition attend or will attend the Winneconne School District. Of the students in question, only one actually attends the Oshkosh School District. 2 are in private schools, and my 3 homeschool daughters will attend Winneconne, and the rest are already enrolled there. Our neighborhood is a close-knit community where families know and support one another. Over time, it has naturally transitioned into a Winneconne School District neighborhood. It is important to us that our children receive safe and reliable transportation to the district we have chosen. Currently, all safe bus pickup options for our Winneconne students have been removed, forcing them to be picked up along the highway, an unsafe and unacceptable situation. Voting yes to this petition would ensure safer transportation for all of our students. Beyond transportation, keeping our neighborhood within a single school district strengthens the ability of the families to support one another with rides to and from school activities, sports, and clubs. As new families move in, they have and will likely continue this same pattern, further cementing our neighborhood's connection to Winneconne. As board members, you represent your constituents, who have overwhelmingly voiced their support for this change by signing the petition. I understand financial considerations play a role in your decision. However, the loss of tax revenue from our neighborhood will not impact district policies or services in any significant way. In fact, the new housing developments along Highway 45, as well as those on Farmington Avenue, will more than compensate for any revenue shift. I ask you to consider the needs of the students whose families have already chosen to open enroll out of the district, taking their funding with them. Your duty is not to protect every dollar that could be gained or lost, but to prioritize the well-being of the children you serve. I urge you to vote yes on this petition, and as you know, you have fiduciary duties as board members, one of which is the duty of care. That duty calls on you to prioritize the needs of students above financial concerns that are already being addressed by new developments in the district. You are not here to defend a dollar sign. You are here to defend our kids. Do you want your legacy on this school board to be remembered as the biggest penny pinchers of all time, or do you want to be the biggest advocates of students? Please vote in favor of the students who have already chosen Winneconne and will in the future, so that they can receive the safer transportation and services they need and the per-pupil funding that should follow them. I appreciate your time. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you very much.
Good.
And we have one more speaker tonight, and that is Katina Malky.
Point of order. Can you please remind them we're not allowed to ask questions? So I just didn't want to think that.
Yeah, we can't have two-way conversations from the board.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Thank you, Beth.
Ready?
Hi, yes.
Hi, I'm Katina. I'm from Oshkosh. I'm petitioning for to be switched to Amro. Hello, my name's Katina Malky. I'm here to petition my address, 5143 Ripple Ave, to change from Oshkosh Area School District to Amro Area School District. A majority of our neighbors are Amro Area School District, besides a few properties, because many years ago, when it wasn't a big issue, farmers wanted their children to go to Oshkosh. We would like to reverse it. We like the smaller class sizes and the school district as a whole. Open enrollment wasn't an issue
until recently, when one of my children was evaluated for special education and was going to be sent to Oshkosh in the middle of the school year. My child has ADHD and is not a distraction to his peers. However, we are working things out for him and changing schools, learning new rules, making new friends, and figuring out a new schedule would be very challenging and would throw all the progress we've already made out the window. Again, where the smaller class sizes come into play, there's more time for one-on-one for his needs. He would also be on the bus for more than an hour each way. For a child with ADHD, that is just asking for issues, and giving things like fidget toys would probably not work. I was also highly upset with the Oshkosh Area School District when a few days after my son's IEP meeting and I was receiving emails from Lakeside Elementary that he was not enrolled in yet. I had not done onboarding. I have not ever enrolled him, but yet we were supposed to start February 21st. It made us feel like it didn't matter what we wanted or what was best for our child, and they just made the decision for us. We also know that you wouldn't just give up a parcel, so we asked a neighbor that does not have children yet if they'd be willing to swap from Amro to Oshkosh so it's like an equal trade. I did print out some maps, which Julie Conrad had showed you some too. So, like this piece of my land, like it does make that little L shape, but that piece behind us was part of our land, but the farmer had to parcel it off for 5 acres to sell it.
Would you like to continue your thought?
Yes, please. The whole island piece of the other parcel, like that's leading up to that parcel, that's all farmland and it's wetland, so it'll never be able to be made into houses. So, like, I understand where you're coming from about that. It makes an island, but like I said, it's all farmland. And then I guess my other thing was, I was looking at this map, if you go a little bit further, and there's a big island right here on the same road. So I guess that's where I stand.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Is there a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
Second. Carlin and DeWitt.
And DeWitt. Okay, moving into our regular board meeting.
Can I do roll?
Oh, yes. Please
DeWitt?
call the roll.
Aye. Herzog?
Aye.
Hess?
Aye.
Smokey? Here. Wright?
Aye.
Wyman?
Aye.
Carlin?
Here.
Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you. Okay, are we in compliance with open meeting laws?
Yes, we are.
Call the roll, please.
Herzog?
Aye.
Hess?
Here.
Aye.
Smokey?
Here.
Wright?
Here.
Wyman?
Here.
Carlin?
Here.
DeWitt? Here. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Land acknowledgement.
Yes, as we gather today, we'd like to acknowledge that in Oshkosh, we're on the ancestral homelands of the Ho-Chunk Nation and the Menominee Indian Tribe of Wisconsin, who lived along the western shores of Lake Winnebago, Wisconsin's largest freshwater lake entirely within its borders. We acknowledge these indigenous sovereign communities who have stewarded this land throughout generations and pay respect to their elders, past and present. We welcome the duty and opportunity to share stewardship in these lands.
And next, we have the approval of the agenda. I would like to pull number 6 and 7 from the consent agenda to allow the calendar committee to revisit the proposed calendar to be presented at the next board meeting.
I'll second that.
Right, Wyman and Wright?
Yes.
And you said 7 and 6?
6 and 7,
6 and
yes.
7?
Mhm.
Hess.
Aye.
Smeltney.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Wyman.
Aye.
Carlin.
Aye.
DeWitt.
Aye.
Herzog.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Board President's Report. It's been very exciting to be at some of the events that have been happening throughout the district between the plays and the wave robotics and the other concerts. It's just a plethora of activities out there, especially at all the schools. And Friday, 2 days from now, there's an app showcase at Boys and Girls Club from the North High School students. So it's very exciting to see everything that's going on besides the literacy and the math curriculum. These are all items that help the total body of the students grow, and I'm very excited about that. Okay. Superintendent's report.
Yes, so building on that, a lot of great things going on across the district. So at Menominee Elementary, we had 20 mentorship matches were made through a new partnership with Big Brothers Big Sisters. The workplace mentoring program pairs Oshkosh Corp employees with Menominee students, plus High School Bigs program pairs with Oshkosh High School students with Menominee students. Together with their mentor, our Menominee students spent time participating in a variety of activities like arts and crafts, educational activities, STEM activities, fun challenges, and more. This community partnership and volunteer presence is a tremendous benefit to our students and families. So thanks so much for everybody who participated in that. Shapiro first graders have been fully immersed in their CKLA Literacy Knowledge Unit on astronomy, participating in enriching hands-on experiences to deepen their understanding of space. The comprehensive unit included a field trip to the Barlow Planetarium, where students observed constellations firsthand, engaging activities using Oreos to demonstrate the phases of the moon, and the rare opportunity to speak to a real astronaut. These diverse learning experiences brought literacy and astronomy concepts to life for these young readers and scientists. Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers made a memorable visit to Franklin Elementary School. During his time at the school, the governor experienced a third grade literacy lesson, received enthusiastic greetings from fifth graders in the hallway, and even joined our food service team to serve nachos in our lunch line. The visit highlighted the importance of education and school nutrition while giving our students a special opportunity to interact with state leader, leaving a lasting impression on our Franklin community. So we thank the governor for his time last week. We recently joined together the Regal Rexnord, with Regal Rexnord to celebrate the installation of 2 new laser drill presses at Oshkosh North and Oshkosh West High Schools, replacing 50-year-old equipment through a $10,000 donation to our Education Foundation. The new state-of-the-art equipment will serve approximately 435 students enrolled in construction, manufacturing, automotive courses, providing them with industry-standard tools. Students like Anthony Wynn expressed excitement about the technology, noting that it better prepares them for post-graduation careers in the real world. Our Oshkosh Early Learning Program is excited to welcome our 2025-2026 class of 4K students and families. Next week, on Tuesday, March 4th, our team is hosting our 4K Exploration Evening. This first ever interactive event offers families an opportunity to meet some of our brilliant 4K teaching staff and learn about the program while their children participate in supervised 4K activities. More information is available on our website for that event. Oshkosh North students demonstrated their talents in the Skills USA regional competition, participating in diverse categories including welding, engineering, medical terminology, job interviews, and technical math. The Spartan competitors performed well across all events. This impressive showing exemplifies both Spartan pride and Spartan strong values as our students showcase their vocational and technical skills at that competition. So congratulations to those award winners. Menominee Elementary students celebrated Read Your Heart Out, bringing our school community together in recognition of National African American Parent Involvement Day. The vibrant literacy celebration featured special guest readers, DJ sessions, drum circles, and bookmark crafting activities that engage students throughout the day. Every student also received a new book to take home, helping nurture the love of reading while creating lasting memories for the Oshkosh community. 8th graders from Carl Traeger Middle School combined creativity and business in an engaging Shark Tank-style art project where students pitched innovative ideas to a panel of judges. As part of the Drawing Art Connections curriculum, Students learn graphic and product design principles, creating their own products, logos, and digital labels. The project culminated with students applying 7th and 8th grade math concepts to construct cardboard packaging before presenting their completed products to teachers, administrators, and their peers. Bell Phillips Middle School is continuing to have is continuing its impactful partnership with the Oshkosh Area United Way. Over 800 students participated in the quarterly service projects that blend artistic expression with community service. For their second quarter project coinciding with Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service, students created over 400 fingerprint and love bug magnets for Maravita Living residents and 250 watercolor bookmarks for the United Way's youth literacy initiatives. The successful collaboration was received with enthusiastic support from both educators and students while making a meaningful difference in our community. In celebration of Black History Month, Reed Elementary School is featuring the book Something Someday as its book walk story of the month. The interactive outdoor reading experience takes place on Reed's recently revitalized playground and now serves as a vibrant community space. This inspirational story about hope and the impact of small actions creates a meaningful activity for families to engage in literature while enjoying Reed Elementary's impressive outdoor facilities. And finally, again, a list of a lot of the places that I've been able to get to over the last couple weeks. So very busy schedule, and I'm excited to keep that rolling as we get the second semester kicked off. So and that concludes the superintendent's good news report for tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Davis, and we'll move on to the district administrator's supplemental reports. Number A, referendum updates / methane report.
So today's report of the referendum is focusing on the results and facts around the methane testing. I do have to say I was a little excited to work on this part. My former chemistry teacher background actually came in handy reading through the 36 plus pages of the final report. So one thing about the fact sheet and the methane testing is that we worked collaboratively with the city of Oshkosh. We actually did the pre-submittal review at the very end of January, and one of the outcomes of that pre-submittal review was working together to provide the information and the facts around methane and the concerns around methane around the Shapiro site. So some key pieces with this is that we engaged with an engineering firm to fully evaluate any risk associated with the landfill gases at the proposed site of the new consolidated middle school, which is Shapiro. One thing that we did do in the pre-submittal process is we reviewed older maps and land surveys of where like the quarries were, etc. And please keep in mind that Shapiro is directly on top of a farm field, or what was a farm field. The final report that came out that we got this past week, the final report confirms that there is no risk of hazard from methane gases or other volatile organic compounds, VOCs, at the proposed site. The City of Oshkosh's systems at adjacent locations of former landfills are working effectively to mitigate any risk of methane gas buildup or spreading to other properties. The proposed site for the new middle school, which includes the current site for Jacob Shapiro, is safe for expansion and development based on those pieces. A couple things that I want to point out from these results and next steps is, once again, the information or fact sheet that was shared with the board, and that also is going out and will be available to all residents on our referendum website. The full report is there. So you can read all of the pages with that. In addition, there will be more information because we did do internal testing, and the final report for that will also be publicly available as soon as we have that portion of it. Because there is no concern of methane in the school building around the proposed middle school site, we are anticipating no additional mitigation efforts are going to be needed. One thing that we want to point out is the city will continue to maintain ventilation systems on the adjacent landfill sites. All landfill sites near Shapiro Elementary site, Shapiro Elementary School, pose no immediate danger to residents. The mitigation strategies are working. It should be noted that no trespassing signs, because this is a question that came up from community members, that no trespassing signs had been placed at nearby landfill sites in order to prevent the use of the site by pet owners who are not cleaning up after their animals or their pets. So there was concerned citizens that were saying, well, why are there no trespassing signs if there's no hazard? So at this point, and with all of the information, there is no change to our proposed location or planning based on the results.
Any questions in regard to there being no methane issues being found at the Shapiro site? Dr. Hess?
So, I'm sorry, can you explain again first, thank you for testing this. I appreciate what you found. I agree. Looking at it, I believe we're probably safe, and that's a great thing. The testing inside, what did we do there? Did we literally cut through the concrete and dig a hole, or
No.
what?
So in any school building or at any time, you can do air quality testing inside. And so the portion of air quality testing that we did was for VOCs, or volatile organic compounds, which methane is. And so we wanted to also say, was there any type of methane inside the building or at any rates, so that we could say outside the building, underground, and inside there is absolutely no methane.
And given this report is on a referendum update, I did receive a call today, and I had a conversation with the city staff about it. And they suggested to me that in fact, if we wanted to, we could build on the South Park site. That it turns out that my understanding was, from a legal standpoint, that there was some exception in the zoning code that would allow us to do that. Is that our understanding of whether we could? I get whether we have chosen to, that's a different question, but I want to know, is it possible that we could build on the South Park? Like, if
We would have had to pursue that exception.
right.
It felt like this was the better option. 2 acres bigger on that site, and be able to move beyond that the approach and departure zone.
Thank you.
I was just going to ask, when do you anticipate that because the board got a 2-page summary document, and you said that it will be on the website. When do you expect that the fact sheet on methane testing will be on the website?
It's on right now.
It is
I
on
think it's on there right now, yeah.
Because it's not, just so the public knows, it's not in the board materials. I didn't see it on there yet.
Correct. We were waiting on we wanted to link the actual full final report, and that we did not have that in time to go into the board packet.
Okay.
And it is on the website. Thank you.
Yes, actually, that was going to be one of the things I commented on. I think it's really impressive how quickly you got that up there, and it was so easy to find. It's just right under the referendum, fact, questions. And correct me if I'm wrong, but methane was never really a concern. Is that correct? And I like that you put in the report, out of an abundance of caution. So it's one of those things that just kind of, it was out there and then it caught fire, but we never really anticipated that methane was on that site.
So based on that location, number one, we wanted to ensure that there was no, because there is methane mitigation going around the properties and the quarries right there, we wanted to make sure that there was no drifting or any type of movement of methane gases. So this is showing that the ventilation systems and the mitigation is working.
Good.
And then also going back in time at that pre-submittal meeting and looking at former maps, the Shapiro site is on top of farmland and not a former quarry.
Good, so we can put the rumors to rest for good.
Here are the facts.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were about to talk. I had a conversation with County Executive John Damel in late December over the question of the airport runway issues and what it would take, what it would have taken to potentially build on that South Park site. At that time, he told me it would have taken approval by, I don't remember the name, but a committee with the county board, the county board approval, a city committee, and the city council. We would have not been able to meet the January deadline to get a referendum question on the board in a timely manner if we had had to get approval of those 4 entities of city and county government.
Yes, agreed. And in addition to that, the new middle school site would still be in Air Zone 2, which is still even though if we got the exception, it's still in that area.
Thank you.
And the new solution is $800,000 less than the previous solution. That's an important point.
This is true, too. Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, I'd just like to say that I'm glad that there's no methane there. I think that the public will be happy to hear that, and it's good that we found that out. So thank you very much for sharing that information with us.
Yeah, and I just want to thank the partnership of the city and the work that we've been doing together. So we appreciate their partnership.
Thank you. All right. We will move on to B, Math Achievement Update.
All right. Good evening to the board, to our community members and parents who are listening. I'm joined by Director Kiffmeyer and Director Cole to provide responses or answers to any questions that you might have regarding the report that was submitted. Because this is a supplemental report and not a workshop, I'll honor the time that we have to respond to any questions unless it is the will of the board that we would go through the presentation that you saw at the Education Committee and that was linked in the materials. So if you let me know how you'd like to proceed, from there we'll go forward.
Could you repeat those options again?
Sure. We can either answer any questions that you might have about the report or contents therein, or if you'd like, we can go through the presentation that was included in the report and provided at the Education Committee. I'm asking that you let us know how to proceed, given that this is a report and not scheduled as a workshop presentation.
Okay, does anyone have any thoughts on how they'd like to receive the information?
I say let's see the report.
Okay. All right, so then we'll go through the presentation, and what I will share, we'll present math and then transition into reading achievement. We'll start with the key performance indicator, just understanding that math achievement and reading achievement account for 15% of our overall star rating in this area. At this time, our star rating is a 3. And just keep in mind that this star rating would be for, it calls for I-ready results for students in grades 3 through 8 in the spring. And so what we actually are reporting would be our mid-year. So this will be updated in the spring. It's important that I mention that, indicating that the overall star rating for the math I-ready results indicate that we are between that 40 to 49%, and our goal is by the spring to certainly be above and beyond that. This slide is one that's familiar. We present this with all of our student achievement reports just to provide an overview of who we serve, and we disaggregate that according to the identities that we're required to report on to the State Department of Public Instruction. Before I turn it over to Director Cole and Director Kiffmeyer, what I will share is the slide that you're looking at right now in the green shows where we are in math for our mid-year I-ready for students in grades 3 through 8. And then if you look at the mid-year comparables for 23-24 and 22-23, I would characterize what we see as stagnation, and it is certainly not where we want to be. included in this report, not in the presentation, but actually in the report materials itself, is a summary of the strategies that we are using at this time, because saying we're not where we want to be is not good enough. Saying what we're going to do to get in a different place so that we land where we aim to land in the spring is what we're here to talk about tonight. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Director Cole to continue the presentation. And again, if you have questions about the strategies and the actions that we're committed to so that we don't land in the same place that we ended our year last year, that's the conversation that we think will be productive for us.
Thank you. And just to note too, that what we're reporting out is iReady, the mid-year data for grades 3 through 8. We do now have our first and second graders taking the iReady, but we didn't include that data in this because the KPI is specific to grades 3 through 8. So this is our data when you compare students who come from homes where there's economic disadvantages versus those who do not. So the blue economically disadvantaged and the red not. So you can see these are proficiency levels on the mid-year iReady data. And then next you can see the similar for students who are serviced in our ESOL program versus students who are not for each grade level. This chart shows the proficiency levels by race. And this chart shows proficiency levels for students who are serviced in our special education programs compared to students who are not.
Excuse me, and with that slide, which I believe is number 10.
Yes.
To me, this points out all the more reason to include all students in the regular classroom getting the high level of instruction that the regular elementary licensed teacher has. With all due respect to teachers of special education, their preparation typically does not include extensive training in all the content areas. However, they are really well trained in differentiating learning and taking students where they are and moving them forward. So blending the skill sets of those two types of licensed teachers is really an asset. So if we can keep all of these students in the disaggregated groups in the regular classroom as much as possible to get that overall instruction in math, it should help them learn and grow at a better rate.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things we have been focusing on during some of our Wednesday collaboration time, we have Wednesdays specifically dedicated to the co-plan to co-serve process, where our special education teachers, our ESOL teachers are collaborating with our general education teachers around how are we planning specifically to differentiate for our students who are serviced in those programs, and then how can our special education and ESOL teachers help co-serve in those classrooms. So that is part of our professional development for this year.
I've always had empathy with those special education teachers in a building who are expected to integrate into all of the classrooms with the limited time they have and covering all grade levels. That's not an easy job.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So now we're getting into our proven process components. So there are 4 proven process components. So we have 2 of them on this slide specifically, just to talk specifically about what we are doing within those components. So one of our proven process components is effective use of high quality instructional materials. So as you know, the board had approved adoption of the Bridges 3rd edition for elementary. So that is, we're just in the beginning of the implementation of that this school year, of teachers learning the new curriculum and implementing that in their classrooms.
And likewise for 6-8, we you guys approved the adoption of Illustrative Math 360, which is not just a new addition like Bridges was for elementary, it's a whole new program. So regrounding our teachers in what implementation looks like, how do we guide their instruction, give them their professional development has been a key for middle school.
And it's not uncommon to have what is called an implementation dip when moving from one set of instructional materials to another.
Yes.
Can you go back to slide 6 really quick? Sorry. Just because you brought that up, I do want to talk about one thing on this slide because I think this is important.
Yes, I forgot about that.
So on here you can see like basically 6th and 8th grade is pretty consistent. It's within 1%. So not a huge variance, but 7th grade took a pretty significant dip of 6% from mid-year last year to this year. So I do want to address that one piece is that when we did some investigating and looking at what potentially that could be the reason for that, it simply was that operations with integers was taught after they took their mid-year assessment, which was a large chunk of that assessment. So instead of like trying to flop our scope and sequence that comes with our program, we know that this is an end of the year assessment and we feel confident that that's going to show up at the end of the year assessment because that's really what iReady is meant for, is are they proficient at grade level by the end of the year. So.
Okay, so our second proven process component is effective professional development and coaching. So in this area, as Dr. Herzog, you mentioned the importance of that collaboration between those specialists. We are providing general education, special education, and ESOL teachers with professional development on engagement techniques. In the past, oftentimes, those groups were in separate collaborations and separate professional development at the district level, and now we have them all together, and they're really having those conversations about those engagement techniques and how those might be scaffolded for a student with an IEP or a student who's serviced in the ESOL program. So they're all together now really focusing on that engagement piece. Also for elementary, general education, special education, and ESOL teachers. They were given a full day of training prior to the start of the school year on Bridges 3rd edition, but also professional development on curriculum planning, preparation, and implementation through their monthly math team meetings and then student-centered coaching cycles. And one of the things that we are really trying to leverage with our student-centered coaching cycles is we're not just coaching general education teachers, but all teachers deserve to have that student-centered coaching. And then also at the elementary level, providing all of our teachers with Advantage Math Recovery training. So teachers go through that in their second year of teaching. First year of teaching, we know there's just so much and everything's new, and it actually is really helpful for them to have a year of teaching math to students in our program for them to really be able to like make connections to that Advantage Math Recovery training.
And for middle school, I kind of already touched on this, but really it was about providing our teachers with the professional development about the implementation of the new curriculum and making sure that it's not just high quality instruction, but pacing is on pace so that all of our classrooms and all of our district are getting the same rigorous and inquiry-based learning.
And one of our things that we've done, like just in response to our rapid cycles of improvement as we're looking at data on a regular basis with our principals and our math ISTs, in the area of planning and preparation, that's an area where, as Julie Holmes and I have been doing learning walks with principals, using a rubric related to like what we're expecting for math instruction, data collected as we've done learning walks in grades 2 through 5 in every single building between the fall of 2023 and January. The data that we collected indicated that about 52% of our teachers that were observed to be really well planned and prepared to implement their Bridges sessions with integrity. So one of our ways to respond to that was in February we had the opportunity to pull all our 4th and 5th grade teachers together and really focus on what that effective planning and preparation looks like, especially in the new Bridges. So how are they managing the pacing? How are they incorporating the equitable practices, which is a new component to Bridges Third Edition, and then how are they incorporating those rigor and engagement techniques that they're learning in our district professional development time into that math instruction. And the teachers who are doing that, like, we just see so much joy in teaching and learning math in the classroom.
Along with the effective professional development at the middle level is that grade level collaborative planning that Erin talked about at the elementary, as well as specific training on student discourse and how to do that through the math lens, to making sure that our kids are not just being fed the information, that they're actually learning how to collaborate and talk about their thinking through math lenses, as well as the coaching that happens when Jan, our secondary math coordinator, goes in and does walkthroughs with our principals or with myself.
Could you give an example of, so I just, like, the things that you're describing sound to me like things that should be happening anyways. This is your regular training, regular improvement. When you see data, or like, so for example, when you see that your 48% of your staff are not prepared to be doing the thorough, rigorous engagement in the classroom for math, what are the steps you actually do to go rapid improvement that is different than, what's the goal all year?
Mm-hmm. So for elementary, it really varies on the data that we're looking at. And I know one of our proven practices that we'll get to is really that useful assessment of student learning. So as we're doing rapid cycles, it really depends on what we're seeing. So in the Forefront program we use at the elementary level, we can see very easily the pacing that the teachers are on. So if we see that there's a grade level or a teacher that is behind on pacing, then it's talking with the principal about when are you going to have that crucial conversation with that teacher, and then leverage the math instructional coach to help them like really map out how they're going to pace to make sure that they're getting through the essential curriculum by the end of the year. Sometimes it's just really noticing maybe some student data where like the data is lagging really far behind the district or behind the other students in that school. And then it's a matter of those are the classrooms we're identifying where we want that student-centered coaching to happen, because the student-centered coaching is about the students and what students need the most support in order to gain that proficiency. Some of it is really principal conversations and principals identifying which teachers they need to prioritize their rapid observation cycles for, and the feedback that they're providing to those teachers. So we've really been working to build capacity in our principals by having like Julie and I actually go in and do math observations with principals, and then talking about the feedback that would be most helpful for the teachers to grow and reflect on. And then also just the monthly data conversations that we're having with principals to really be attending to that data. And the Forefront has been like an incredible tool, because it's so much easier for teachers to use, and it's so much easier for them to see at a glance how their students are performing on the critical standards in each unit for their grade level.
Is that level of accountability, I don't know if that's the right word, but that level of intensity and feedback, is that new? Like, is that something that had not been an expectation in this district before, that you think that this is going to make a difference on the actual educational outcomes for these kids?
I would say our structure is set up much differently now than it was 3 years prior or 5 years prior, so that support can be there. Like, for example, at the secondary level, this is the first year we've had a full-time secondary math coordinator. It was part-time prior to that. This is only the second year that we've had directors at the elementary and the secondary level. So yes, not that feedback or principal observation wasn't there and accountability wasn't there, but it's at a level where it can be consistent. And then our level of support as a director can be to be giving our principals those like tools and look-fors, and the coaching on how to give feedback that's useful and valuable, and not just sort of fluff feedback that maybe potentially could have been there before.
Thanks.
Any other?
I don't.
You
Dr.
talk
Bess.
about math. I think in June, we saw the iReady results from the end of the year last year, and we were 11 percentage points behind of what we were targeting to hit. 10 years ago, this district was in the top 21st percentile, and now we're down to the bottom third. Now if I go look at slide number 6 here, the one where we got all the different things. Could we? You're giving me these different strategies, that the 4 proven process components and strategies to achieve math achievement. And I need to ask the question, what do you mean by proven? Because when I look at this result, it would seem to me that the mid-year result here has actually gone down. And that if the mid-year result actually goes down, I question, how do you say it's proven when you've attempted to use it now and it has gone down? And so I go back to effect size methodologies. You can say something is a proven process, and you can say that we have student learning, but it could well be the case that we have picked things that could provide student learning, but at the end of the year, we're going to actually see a decline. And right now, based off of that mid-year result of 34.9%,
That was last year.
the 33.5, that's a decline. And when I look at, when I break that down by elementary, we're down 0.9%. That's not much, but I again point to, we thought the Bridges was going to give us something grand, and I think we understood why that didn't happen. But then in middle school, we're down 1.8%. And so I'm just left with, I'm continuing to hear that what we're doing is a proven process, yet simultaneously be presented with something where it looks like things are going down. And so I'm at some point not understanding how we say something is proven, yet simultaneously we have things going down. So I come back to something very similar to what Ms. Miltnick was saying, is this really any different from what we have done before? And how do I know? Because I feel like we are just set up again, where at the end of the year, we're just going to be disappointed. And so I feel like, a lot of these components that we're talking about here aren't exactly things that are traditional educational sort of interventions, but okay. I want to know that we're actually seeing the results, because we're not seeing it once again. And this is new. This is our mid-year iReady result. So help me to understand, how can I look at slides 11 and 12 and believe that that's what it's going to take to actually change things? That's my struggle.
Sure. So I'll give a brief response to that. Thank you, Dr. Hess, for your question. So we identify the factors or the variables that are in our control, and that would be the instructional materials that we use, the professional development that we provide, the data that we use to make decisions about staffing, about resource allocation, about student achievement, and then providing feedback and evaluation to our educators and to our administrators as a form of accountability and as a form of affirming effectiveness or addressing ineffectiveness. Those are the 4 things that we control as a school district. And as discussed previously, we are using new curriculum, newer instructional materials, and a new structure to provide clarity around expectations. So when we say the 4 components of our proven process, the proven process components, we're looking at what are the 4 levers in our control as a school district to affect achievement. And it certainly is the materials that we use to engage students in learning and how that material is used, the professional development and the coaching that we provide, the effective analysis and attention to data and information, and then how we provide accountability, clarity, and support through feedback and evaluation. So that's what we mean by these are the proven processes.
And I appreciate we stopped to talk about math, because I can look at English language arts and I look at elementary, and there I see improvement. And so I go, okay, I know we can do something. But when I look at math, I go, last year, relative to everyone else in the state, our district fell. I thought it was like 5 or 6 percentage points. And I'm going, well, okay, everyone else in the state have the same 4 levers that they get to pull, and somehow we're falling. So I can't just say, well, these are the 4 things, because there are other districts that are managing to make it happen just going from one year to the next. I understand going from 10 years, you can say, well, okay, the demographics have substantially changed, but just in 1 year, it isn't just demographics. So I'm struggling here.
And I don't want you to struggle. I think, to your point, the literacy, we use these same levers for reading and literacy, and we see effectiveness. We see results, we see outcomes, and I think that we are in a place where, for example, and Director Cole, if you'd like to speak to this, we can, but for example, math instruction in our district occupies a different amount of time than our literacy instruction does. So that might be an explanation for why we see the gains we do in literacy that we don't see in math. There are a range of explanations that I think are important to talk through and to go through to answer your questions around why we don't see those same gains in math. And our stance is we're not accepting where we are. We're not throwing our hands up and saying that there's nothing that we can do about the results that we're talking about tonight. We're saying the exact opposite, and that is we believe that all of our students in this school district deserve high-quality math instruction, high-quality support. We believe that all of our teachers deserve that support. And as we honor our core values around responsive improvement, we are willing to try and experiment with different strategies and approaches within the areas that we can control to get different results.
Any other math achievement update questions? No? All right, seeing none, we will move on to reading achievement update. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I'll spare the lengthy introduction and
thank you.
All right,
appreciate that.
And get right into just an overview of where we are this year, mid-year, compared to where we were last year, and then the year prior to that. As alluded to, we see growth, and Dr. Brown, I'll turn it over to you to talk about that.
Yeah, no, just I think grade 3 is sort of exciting because if you take a look at where we are mid-year, it's at that 55.56, which is almost where we were at the end of last spring. So I feel like there's some good momentum going, especially with grade 3, and I feel like maybe some of the work we've been doing at grade 1 and 2 is paying off, that we're starting to see those kind of gains. So we'll see as we continue looking at that. The rest are just, slight increases, but good to take a look at. Did you want to say anything? Okay. And then we'll just go through each of the graphs again. Our economically disadvantaged reading mid-year proficiency. So you can see our economically disadvantaged who are not economically disadvantaged and the growth we need to make. And then the same as we look at grades 3-8 by ESOL status and where we are. And then grades 3-8 by race and literacy. And again, there's many areas that we need to make improvements in. And then students with disabilities comparatively to students who do not. All right, so then we're going to go into our proven process components and strategies that we are utilizing in literacy. So you can see at the very beginning the field testing in CKLA, which I know all of you have been involved in, and you'll get to hear more at the Education Committee about where we are in the CKLA study.
In terms of study sync, We formally had the implementation, I would say, this year, having a secondary literacy coordinator this year for full-time. We did not have one last year, and so, yes, we did have Study Sync in, but the true pacing and implementation and the coaching that needed to be in place was not, I would say, to fidelity for that piece, so I'm really saying the grounding piece for Study Sync really is this year.
And then, similar to math, we have our engagement focus for professional development in grades K through 5, and that's with our engagement strategies. The rigor so far, techniques have really been in the material, but the engagement techniques are the ones that we're really trying to get our teachers to utilize throughout the lessons so that we're making an impact on the students and their learning. The personalized reading plans are in place and are communicated with families for grades 4K through, or for grades K through 3. 4K will be coming up. I think this is going to be a really big game changer as far as seeing some impact on students. It's some of the work that we've been trying to get off the ground for the last couple of years, and now that we have specific reading plans for students and the targeted practice time where teachers are working with students on that, we feel like that's going to make some shifts for us. Focus interventions, as I said, during targeted practice time, which is within the literacy block. And then we're going to continue to target students in grades 3 through 5 who are 1 or more grade levels below. And that took place during the mid-year iReady. An analysis was done, not just 3-5, but 1-5 for our teachers to take a look at that, and principals working with teachers and the literacy coaches to talk about plans in place for students who are further behind. We also have, as part of that, the targeting, we do have some students who are utilizing Litera or utilizing eAcademy Litera or university tutors, which is just another layer of support for some of our students.
In terms of 6-8, it's really about the coaching from our IST literacy, working with our principals and our teachers on that student-centered coaching and the implementation process of Study Sync, as well as being really targeted on our pacing, making sure that all of our 6th grade is moving at the right pace, and if not, what's going on, what are the barriers for that piece. And then really truly, we spoke to this a little bit earlier, and I think Dr. Herzog, you mentioned this, the professional development for our ESOL and our special education staff, because they need to be not just exposed, but expected to be engaging in grade level material and rigor, and that has really been a shift in our focus, not just in literacy, but across K-12 truly, knowing that we can't expect our students to perform on standardized tests if they're not being expected in a daily to be working through those standards and expectations.
Okay, then our next area is the useful assessments of student learning. We are continuing our monthly common formative assessments in grades through K through 5, and we meet monthly with principals to go through that data and really analyzing down to the classroom level and what plans are in place for students as we take a look at that data. Ames Web Plus and iReady Diagnostic in grades 4K through 3. So we just finished Ames Web Plus, and we're going to be doing that again in April and then updating reading plans from there.
We use iReady for 6-8 and a little bit different than the elementary level. We tried the monthly common assessments last year, and what we found is there was too much of a disconnect between the Study Sync units and what we were trying to focus on monthly. And so we spent a lot of time this summer aligning those 4 common assessments to those units in Study Sync to make sure that there was cohesive teaching and planning for that small group instruction when our kids are not meeting proficiency on that common assessment target.
And then the meaningful educator feedback and evaluation. We've had specific professional development around transformative coaching and feedback, and that's time where we're practicing the type of feedback that we're giving our educators in order to improve, as well as times to practice courageous conversations that may need to take place in order to help elevate teaching happening in the classroom. Principals are also checking process and providing feedback. And we actually meet with the principals to take a look at the feedback they are giving, to give feedback on the feedback.
I would, all the same things are happening at the secondary level as well, and then our middle school coaches are truly providing that support for that targeted instruction based on our formative assessment data. So they are supporting our classroom teachers when they're looking at their data to say, what do we need to do for that targeted instruction when kids aren't meeting those proficiency levels?
And then again, elementary coaches are providing support to ensure the impact on intervention, so they're taking a look at where things are at and getting in to meet with them. And of course, there's also the student-centered coaching cycles as well. And I know Dr. Kuhab and Ms. Holmes also check in with those coaches to make sure that things are on target and where we need it to be.
Okay. The only other thing that I'll add is, as at the district level, as we monitor student achievement and proficiency rates, as Dr. Brown talked about, by classroom, myself, Dr. Brown, Director Kiffmeyer, Dr. Kuhab, Julie Holmes, Jan Wagner, we are monitoring that data and making classroom visits to see what's going well, where we see high levels of proficiency and high levels of growth that either outpace the state or outpace our district. And we want to learn from teachers and learn from those spaces to understand what's happening that's effective and how do we scale that across our system. We also are visiting classrooms where we don't see that growth and we don't see that achievement happening in the ways that we would expect. And we follow up those visits with either direct feedback to the educator or conferring with the principal and the instructional leadership of those schools, sharing what we saw, and then attaching that with expectation for follow-up and ongoing support. Sometimes that looks like improvement in engagement strategies or classroom management strategies or pacing, as we talked about earlier. So that feedback looks different, but the approach that we're taking, particularly after seeing mid-year results and having consensus with these results for reading are okay, and there's further for us to go. And when I say okay, I'm not suggesting that we're where we want to be or that this is acceptable. I'm suggesting that we do see improvement, we see growth, and it's important to celebrate incremental growth and recognize where we see growth occurring. It's also important to not stay there too long, but to continue to move forward. And so that's what we're doing with a greater level of intensity, presence, and messaging around what our expectations are, and messaging around capability to support efficacy of our teachers, but also of our students and our leaders. At this time, I will yield to the board for questions that you have about the literacy report that you received.
Who has any questions or comments? Dr. Herzog?
Thank you. Actually, I have one on this very slide. The dot in the upper right-hand corner, left-hand corner, where it says reallocating. What does that mean?
Which slide?
Very
I'm sorry.
last slide, the question and comments slide.
Oh, I think that was
I
probably.
think that's a random bullet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
That's what I kind of thought,
That's a
but
really great question.
maybe there was some code I didn't
No,
understand.
No.
nothing there.
That was a good catch, though.
Good catch, Barb.
Thank you.
Grammar hammers.
Yeah, it's not on
It's not
our
on
slide,
ours.
so we're not
Oh.
sure why it's coming up there.
I don't know. Then I had a couple of other questions. In the staff report, there were references under item 3B, communication, and I think 3E. Statements were made such as growth scores for 10 elementary schools were significantly higher than mid-year for 23-24, and the same was true of 2 middle schools. That is, that those scores were significantly higher. How are you defining significantly higher there? Talking about 5 points, 10 points? I don't know. How do you define that?
So I can talk to the 2 middle schools first if you,
Yeah,
because
and
you have more to go to. But when you look at the 2 middle schools that we're referencing, the percent of medium typical growth achieved last year at mid-year was at 20 for one of our schools, and this year was at 80%. So like that is significant growth.
80?
And so we have to remember when we're reporting out these numbers, we're talking about proficiency, right? And so when kids are 2, 3, and even more grade levels behind, that growth piece becomes more and more important to be having significant growth, because you need more than a year's growth if we're 2 and 3 levels behind to get to the proficiency piece. So that's really exciting for us to see in our middle school. The other one went from 60% to 120% median growth. So that's significant growth. Where the other, the third middle school was pretty consistent. It wasn't a huge change, and the other one took a slight dip.
Okay, thank you for that. And then another question I had was, you cited in the staff report under 4A that 2 schools had not shown a great deal of growth. One was an elementary school, one was a middle school. So my question on that is, how are we reallocating resources to those schools that are not making the growth that we need to see for those students? Or are they just getting the same allocation of resources, whether that's personnel or additional time, or however you would define that? But what are we doing in those schools where they're not showing the growth? Because to treat all of them the same doesn't make sense to me, because to treat everybody the same when they're not the same, you're not going to see growth. So how do we ensure growth for those students in those schools? So
Well, can I just say, just before we don't assume initially that this is a resource issue. So before as we look at trends, we also are careful in our analysis before we jump to the conclusion that the explanation for why we see or don't see desired results is because of a resource issue. So some of it is strategy, some of it is how we use the current resources that are there in the space, and if those are effective. But we certainly don't jump to the conclusion that more resources or different resources are needed. It's some of that analysis to just make a determination. So I want to start with that, just to be clear that in many of these cases, we aren't talking about a resource issue. There are other explanations for why we see the results that we're seeing, and then we're addressing those through what you saw in the proven process component slides.
Okay, I shouldn't have used the word resources. Once you started explaining that, I realized that wasn't the right word. But for those schools that are not achieving, what's happening there to help them achieve?
So the first thing at the secondary level was you do a deeper dive to really understand where did that come from? Where did that decrease come from, or not that significant growth come from? Is it a specific grade? Is it a specific classroom? So you have to dive a little bit deeper into the number to understand the why behind that. And then our secondary literacy coordinator spends specific amount of time, I would say additional time, working with the IST literacy, those instructional collaborative teams that work at the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade level, and the principal to look at what coaching needs to happen to get that growth where we would expect it to be.
Thank you. Thank you for helping me clarify my question.
And I think important to note that, like, again, this system, both in math and literacy, or math and reading, are being set up that those types of responses can occur in real time, right? We don't have to wait for a mid-year assessment. We don't have to wait for an end-of-the-year assessment. Like, we're really looking at that in real time through the common formative assessments. So that we want to, again, be able to build a responsive, structure here. So the early indicators for our data allow us to be able to go ask the right questions and be able to see way ahead of where we were historically, as far as the system is concerned.
Thank you.
Any other?
Go ahead, Molly.
I just wanted to, on your effective professional development and coaching, you mentioned personalized reading plans. And I did not ask for this ahead of time, so I think this is actually something I hope we can go back to the education committee on, to find out how that all went. So for those who don't know, personalized reading plans are a requirement under Act 20, and it was a significant lift for our K-3 staff this year, led by Linda, to create this, and it is a structure that has not been in place in the past of direct accountability to parents on like what we're being done to get kids closer to proficiency or to get them out of the bottom quartile. So I would be curious about the numbers about that, and I expect you do not have those with you. But I am also curious what you saw when these have been presented to families. how, has this been proven to be an effective tool, or does it indicate that it might be an effective tool, both for family engagement and also actually better outcomes?
Is it okay if we take note of that request
Yes.
and then for Education Committee and a direct response to your question, we can provide
I'm
that.
fine with that.
Thank you.
I would say, just one.
She's proud of the work she did on these.
I know, I can't help myself. I would say on this, a great piece that I've heard, and these are just spots so we can get way more data on it, is parents saying thank you. For the PRP, for the personal reading plan, of hearing about thank you for supporting my child. I think it's just so much more clear, and parents are being, that accountability right there to have that has been a really good thing. So I think the thank you feels really good, that, I think we're ensuring a partnership from the get-go. And I would say about 50% is kind of where we are for students right now needing a personal reading plan, which is very similar across districts.
Any other questions? Kelly, did you have a question? No? Dr. S?
Again, my interpretation of the iReady data on literacy is, I look and say grades 3 through 5, 4.7% increase, and thank you guys very much for the work that you're doing there. The study sync, the grades 6 through 8, is exactly the same. So I think if there are efforts into trying to figure out where do we need to improve, I think I would be concentrating substantially on the middle school.
So, I don't mean to interrupt your thoughts,
Go
sorry.
ahead.
So Dr. Hess, that's another piece, is that the work that they're doing at the early elementary is going to support having kids not further and further behind in grade level. So we're still in that process of that rolling piece. So what I talked about, when we have kids 3, 4 grade levels behind, we are not seeing that result in the proficiency, but that's where the growth percent makes a really big difference, because we will start to see that play out. I also think having the standard secondary literacy coordinator in place all year for this year, and the consistency with looking at the data and supporting our principals and our IST literacies is another big piece where I do see that that's going to end up moving by the end of the year and in the next year to come.
I think it's also important to note that the majority of our efforts in literacy occur kindergarten through 3rd grade in recent years, and so there certainly are students who are now in middle school that didn't get the benefit of some of that direct, explicit, systematic instruction for early foundational skills that are now in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And it's not to suggest that they didn't get anything when they were in elementary school, but it is important to note that there were concentrated efforts around early literacy, kindergarten through 3rd grade, and there are students who just didn't get that benefit at that time.
And I think one other just suggestion, I think anytime, I would like for us, I appreciate that you've displayed the disaggregated data so that you can see the disparities, but I feel like, I think the Real Oshkosh group asked about changes when we were talking about the forward results, and we had to say, I'm sorry, but we changed the benchmarks, the cut scores, so it was kind of tough to give anything there. We can look at this, though, and look at the disparity stuff, and I think I asked you, Dr. Coleman, for that. And I can say that in math, we lowered the disparity by roughly 2%, but that was only because the white students went down relative to the black students, and in English language arts, we actually increased the disparity. So I think, one, we've got to make a change there too, and two, I would just ask that every time we're displaying any of this type of data, that we also display at least the prior year, that it's the trend that I'm concerned about, not just, I'm concerned about the actual result this year, but to know that we're making progress, we need to see the trend, please. So,
is it okay if I say that in literacy particularly, we saw decreases in disparity in all groups except for between black students and white students?
That may well have been the case.
Yeah, so, and that tracks with, I guess I would be remiss if I didn't state that in Wisconsin, we lead the entire nation in gaps in achievement between black students and white students in reading. And we have for at least the last 15 years. And so we understand as a state, and certainly as a school district, that the alarm should be ringing. And I appreciate that that you specifically asked for this information, because you're correct. The gap between black students and white students actually widened from last year to this year. We didn't see that same widening occur across other racial groups, but when we look at our performance of our black students, there is extreme concern there, and it's something that as a system we have to take serious, and we have to put a priority on ensuring that we are closing gaps, because to me, this is not just about proficiency and literacy scores. Opportunity and life outcomes are attached to this, and we want to make sure that when we say all students have an opportunity to be successful and to pursue their dreams and pursue their goals, when we see an area of concern, and I would say an area of crisis, this is not inevitable. I believe that this is solvable, and as a state, we haven't figured this out yet, but as a district, we're not shying away from leading into the type of analysis and questions that you've asked specifically about our racial disparities.
Any other?
I'd just like to combine a thought with Tim's last one of the last 2 points that were made of their incredible and awful opportunity gaps between white and black students. And then it gets worse when you look at the high school level, and I know tonight's report is only through middle school. I want to see what we're doing for those efforts to get those foundational literacy skills to those kids that have gotten screwed over by this district, who did not get them for their first 8 years of their education here. And we need to see what new programming is going to be done, because it's not going to be caught up just with StudySync. That we have to have extra efforts to get rid of those disparities and to get those kids so that they have a chance to achieve and have a chance to have a successful life after high school.
Thank you. Stephanie?
Yeah, so I'm encouraged by the iReady data. If you look at where we were in fall 23-24, we have increased in 5 out of the 7 grades that are listed here, or grades 3 through 8. So that's encouraging to me. I think that that's a good sign. And if you look at our mid-year results, or to the spring results, there's always more growth. So I'm finding this data encouraging. I had a question on what's going on in the 3rd grade. Why did that jump up so high?
We're hopeful that it's because of all the work we've been doing at the foundational level at K1 and 2, and that's making an impact on grade 3. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I have one myself, I guess. It's kind of broad-based. So a year from now, what should the board and what should the community constitute as a success in regards to literacy? And what would you guys view as a success as being the administrators of our literacy initiatives?
So from a proficiency rating perspective, we want the board to, so looking at our goals here around our star rating, we want to move to a 3-star rating. Dr. Davis, Dr. Hess and I met to talk about understanding statistical significance and what that means or doesn't mean, but essentially we want to see statistically significant improvement across all grade levels, but certainly we want to see our key performance indicator rating reflect growth, and so growth in our star rating. So while growth within achievement continues to be our focus, we need that growth to materialize into proficiency, and that's what we're measuring through our KPI. So a celebration would be growth that translates into proficiency and translates to movement in our star rating.
Okay.
I just have a final comment. I appreciate everything that you guys are doing to get this up and working. Looking at this and looking at the numbers, it is kind of upsetting For as long as I've been paying attention and as long as I've been on this board, and I know that Dr. Herzog has said she's been on this board for 10 years and we need to see results. And that's not a discredit to any of the staff, teachers, or even administration here that's working here. This is disheartening. And I guess I have a pretty simple question that we hear often. We're doing this, we're doing that. When are we going to actually see results that we can come in and clap and cheer and go, yes, Oshkosh is it? Because I haven't seen it for as long as I've been paying attention. And I understand that it takes time and we're not going to see results immediately. But as Dr. Herzog has mentioned, she's been on this board for 10 years and we're not seeing, and we're not where we're supposed to be. So I just want to come in here before I'm done, serving the community and actually really celebrate, because it's maddening, it's saddening, and my heart goes out to, like I said, the staff. That's not a knock at anybody. I know that they're doing everything that they can, but I want this board to actually be able to clap and celebrate. That's all. Thank you.
And I'll just say, we do see results. I think the investment that this board has made, a significant investment in instructional materials, so that now all of our students, particularly in our grades kindergarten through 8, now all have access to grade level quality instructional materials. And we do see the effect of that we see positive movement. I agree with you. This is not where we want to be, but we also have to understand that we're not promising the community a miracle. We're promising the community adherence to implementation science and a science-based approach to getting results. And so we aren't doing miracle work here. We're taking a methodical, strategic approach to improving outcomes, and we see the impact that that's having. It is not a touchdown by any stretch, Mrs. DeWitt, and I agree with you on that. So it's not time to celebrate. It's a first down, and we're going to continue to incrementally move toward the goalpost where we can actually celebrate and say.
I want to be able to yell touchdown.
Right. We all do. 3 to 5 years. We need 3 to 5 years.
So, just one.
Seeing no other.
I have one more.
Okay.
So we do see growth in our literacy proficiency. So math we need work on. Math is not anywhere it needs to be. But this is encouraging because we actually have achieved some growth in literacy. So I guess Ms. DeWitt's comment kind of confused me, because even though it's not the growth we want right now, we are inching up. And we'll see what happens in the end of year. Thank you.
Anyone else? No? Well, thank you. I especially appreciate the football reference, since I missed that right now.
First down.
And we will move on to student attendance quarterly report.
Hello, everybody. I do not.
So for student attendance, the key performance indicator that we use for that attendance rate accounts for 15% of our engagement and communication core area. So looking at where we're currently at for the course of this school year, our attendance rate is 93.1%. So that puts us slightly over the state average of 92.8%, which just happens to be the attendance rate that we had last year for our school district. So when broken down in different demographic areas by race, disability status, economic status, gender, ESOL status, and homeless status, we continue to be at or slightly above the state average for attendance in most areas. So we're hoping to continue and improve on that. And one of the ways we improve on that is by bringing together our Attendance Matters Committee. So we come together about 3 times a year. That committee is made up of school district personnel, including our school social workers, other pupil service staff members, administration, as well as community members that include parents, Winnebago County Department of Human Services, the Health Department, and other community stakeholders. And really what we do is we put together recommendations that the school district can bring back to hopefully improve attendance. So the last time Attendance Matters met was on February 6th. And there were a number of recommendations that came out of that committee meeting, including looking to see if we can automate our district letters of concern. So we're currently working with the Appleton Area School District that also uses Infinite Campus and has automated their letters of concern to figure out a way for us to be able to do that as well. We want to update our attendance codes to create more clarity and to have a easier time differentiating between absences where a student had a medical excuse and those where the student did not. That will help our staff determine when to send out a medical letter of concern for attendance. One of the recommendations was to change the current 10-minute threshold that we use for unexcused absences at the elementary level in particular. Another was to send information on parents on how parents can use the parent portal on Infinite Campus to excuse their child. So right now they can email, call. This would just be another way for parents to be able to excuse their child from school. We also would like to see an automatically generated email that goes out to parents once their child reaches 3 unexcused absences. The threshold that the state uses for habitual truancy is 5 unexcused absences, so that would just give parents a heads up that they're approaching that number. We'd like to create a more interactive and user-friendly web page for Attendance Matters that includes attendance resources. And finally, we talked about new ways to promote attendance for all populations. So in the past, we've done some things like creating attendance promotional material. One of the things that we've thought more about is how can we do that so it includes other languages and really help focus in on some of our population that hasn't been really targeted as closely for attendance, like some of our ESOL families.
Okay, Stephanie.
I know that students are involved with the attendance committee, or I don't know what you call it actually, but how are you involving students in the process? Because they probably have great ideas on why people can't get to school or how to encourage them to get to school. So what do the students say?
That's a good question. And unfortunately, we haven't had students attending our Attendance Matters committee. We usually meet during the school day, which creates an obstacle, but that is something we can. Yeah, that is something we can think about more in terms of, if there's another time that we can meet and still be able to pull in our community stakeholders while we also include students.
Yeah. Or maybe reach out to student councils or something like that. I don't know. But
absolutely.
Thank you.
Let's go first. Molly?
There's a new episode of Sold a Story out that's been mostly about literacy, but there's the highlight right now is about this district in Ohio that has been doing great things with literacy, and very closely related to that is attendance, and they focus very much so on rapid response and more of supporting students instead of yes, it's about talking to families about why attendance matters, but it's also about providing the support to actually get kids to school. What are some of the initiatives that you and other community stakeholders have found to say that we could consider doing to provide that support?
Yeah, so our social workers are always looking to try to eliminate barriers for our families that have a difficult time getting their children to school. One of the huge barriers for families in our community is transportation. Mm-hmm. So some of our schools have put together things like walking school buses. I know there have been some schools that have been doing that for some time. We've also talked about other ways that we could maybe look at transportation differently as a district, especially for our youngest students, our elementary students that may have a difficult time walking close to 2 miles to school each day. So those are some of the things that we're going to continue to take a closer look at.
Dr. Hess?
I think Molly mostly covered everything that I was going to address, but I do feel like, in my mind, this probably is largely logistical issues kind of thing that you're seeming to suggest, and I wonder, are there restrictions for us in terms of busing? Is it, I believe is it 2 miles? Is that the cutoff?
That is the cutoff.
But can we provide busing for something less than that if we chose to do it? Is that a resource that the district could look to?
Yeah, so the district creates their busing guidelines.
Right. Because if there was a place to invest money to get more students to come here more often to reduce that, so they're actually getting the education, I would be interested in investing in that.
Well, two success stories I think there are related to that is that we now have the school bus passes, the student bus passes for the
That's
city
helped a
bus.
lot.
And then doing that hub idea like they do at Menominee, and between Menominee and Vel. I see the kids when I come to meetings here at 7:30 waiting for the bus, and I think the more we could do that would be amazing.
Because in part, I am kind of concerned too about transportation if the referendum does pass and we're reducing down more schools. That's more community members that are going to need to transport their kids more.
Yeah.
Is that going to result in, so it's just something we need to think about.
Yeah, and
I would
those
like
would
to
be
invest
strategies
in.
similar to like we did with Menominee that we would continue to be creative with.
Any other questions? I have one statement. When I'm on my daily journey from dropping one kid off at West to drop the other kid off at Tippler, I am continually amazed by how many kids use the city bus and different forms of transportation, and how many kids walk in groups. If you haven't seen it, there's a lot of kids walking and using city transportation. So those are my thoughts. But if there's no other questions, and thank you very much for the report.
Thank you, Matt.
We will move on to number 4, other reports. Do we have an education committee report?
We do.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Herzog.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. The Education Committee met on February 5th at 7:30 in the boardroom and discussed several items. One was school calendars. The committee reviewed draft calendars for the years 25-26 and 26-27, discussed concerns that they had heard from staff on professional development times and dates, as well as ending the school year in 2026 on a Friday instead of on a Monday. Administration provided rationale for professional development as focus areas moving forward will be on literacy and math engagement, as well as strategies and rigor. The OEA had requested more structure for the assigned days, resulting in professional development replacing planning time. It was suggested that Dr. Davis lead messaging on the calendar and professional development changes. The calendar committee is made up of staff from all employee groups, and as we heard earlier tonight from Mrs. Wyman, they will be meeting next week to iron out some additional concerns. A recommendation was made to present both calendars tonight, but as we heard, that's been moved to the next meeting, pending the next meeting of the calendar committee. We had a math achievement update, much of which you've already heard. Anything new here was there was a request to add high-quality curriculum as a future agenda item for the committee, but most of what we discussed on that math update was already covered. We also looked at the reading achievement update, and as noted, the current achievement outcomes, as Dr. Coleman has suggested tonight, do not reflect potential or expectations. Instructional strategies and supports are being improved, and major data analysis is underway at all schools and grade levels. Grade 3, it was noted, was on track for a 3-star rating. Science of reading practices and phonics implementation, strong and support systems are in place for struggling tutors or students, as we heard, and the focus is on ensuring necessary supports for particular students. We also discussed, as we just heard, the student attendance update. The Attendance Matters Committee works on ways to encourage attendance and address concerns. The next meeting of the group is scheduled for Thursday, February 6th, as Mr. Kemmer noted. Those topics were to include automated letters of concern, medical note requirements, that 10-minute threshold, parent portal, reporting letters after 3 absences, webpage resources, attendance reminders, and community-wide efforts. Committee's suggestions included communicating to parents to set and check Infinite Campus notifications, offering more hub busing, sharing bus schedules, and offering more resources. And then finally, the last item on the agenda that day was the proposed middle school math course addition, which we will be hearing shortly, which is to add an integrated grade 6-7 math course for grade 6, and then change the compacted 7-8 course to integrated math 7-8 for grade 7, which would allow students to complete 3 years of math content in only 2 years. And no additional FTE would be required. The next meeting of the committee will be March 5th, 2005 at 7:30 in this room. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Herzog. Facilities and Finance Committee report.
Nothing today.
Nothing to report? Okay. All right. I have the Legislative Committee minutes. We met Tuesday, February 25th, which was yesterday, 8:30 a.m. We reviewed the CESA 6 legislative breakfast that myself, Dr. Davis, and Dr. Herzog attended. We got updates from lawmakers on where potential bills might go, and then we discussed those within our committee here. We discussed Governor Governor Evers' proposed budget update. That was a slip. And we all agreed that that will ping pong back and forth until it comes to resolution. And then we went over federal legislative update on executive orders that could possibly affect K-12 schools, and a WASB update from Dr. Herzog. So those were the things we discussed in Legislative Committee. Policy and Governance.
Thank you. The Policy Committee met yesterday at 7:30 a.m. We reviewed 5 policies. The first one was 2266, non-discrimination on the basis of sex in education programs or activities. This policy returned to the committee per request for clarification on how different groups of students are protected now that Title IX policy has reverted back to its original policy for all students. It was communicated that there are other policies and accompanying administrative guidelines that still protect all students. This policy was approved as already written, no changes. We also discussed 0167, public comment at board meetings. This policy had returned to the committee for another review after adding suggested committee language in January and after a legal review and suggestions for not allowing banners during our meetings. This policy was recommended to go to the full board for approval at the March 12th meeting as well. We also revisited 0166, the agenda, pertaining to the agenda. This policy updates based on the changes of policy 0167.3 that had been proposed. These revisions will go to the full board for approval at the March 12th meeting. And we also discussed 5540, investigations involving law enforcement and other governmental agencies. The committee discussed this policy and concerns, including clarifying the role of school resource officers, how clear guidelines need to be communicated and followed as to when interactions happen between students and SROs, and we discussed the need for accountability. Ms. Milnick suggested that a work group be formed that includes parents, administrators, and SROs to meet and discuss our policy and its suggested language. We also will be taking this one back to the committee with an update on the language on how the policy will be reinforced. We will be discussing it at our next meeting. And finally, 0172, legal counsel. This policy was requested for discussion at a previous board meeting. The committee discussed the possibility of doing a request for proposal for legal services. We will be looking at, we requested a list of lawyers be retained and expenses over the past 3 years for legal fees. This topic will move to the Facilities and Finance Committee for further discussion. And the committee requested that the RFP include district goals and priorities to make it known what exactly the district is seeking. We ran short on time, so the remaining 24 policies will return to Policy and Governance Committee for review on March 20th. And please note that this meeting is not on a Tuesday, it's a Thursday. We had to move it for spring break. So our next meeting is Thursday, March 20th. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're done with other reports. We will move on to public forum. But before we start public forum, I have a couple things to note. A total of 45 minutes during the meeting will be allotted for non-agenda and agenda-related public forum. Each speaker will be allowed up to 3 minutes to speak. Public comments will be limited to those who reside in Oshkosh Area School District or have children attending the district. For safety purposes, people providing their public comments will need to state the city they reside in and not their specific address. So we will start out with non-agenda related public forum tonight. And the first person we have signed up for that is Jean Erdman.
My name is Jean Erdman, and I live in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. I'm going to speak a little bit about some of my experiences with past referenda. When I switched from Dale School to Webster, Webster was pretty new, brand new almost. And I turned my academic record around from B's and C's to, I ended up being a professor. And I really attribute a lot the fact that the buildings were beautiful, they were spacious, there wasn't a loud blower, there wasn't a fan that was going to tip over, and especially if something broke, it would be fixed. Because I grew up in a family of 6 kids, and there wasn't always time. My dad had a job, and then he had another job, and my mom was raising 6 kids, and there wasn't always time to fix the cracked window and so forth. So I really felt cared about, and I think it brought the best out of me. I've been to Phillips several times, the new middle school, and I'm really pleased that this year it seems to be going very smoothly. The things seem calm in there, nice spacious rooms, a lot of light. My kids went to Franklin. There was never enough room in the lunchroom. All of the years, I had each kid go to Franklin for six years. And one kid loved the noise. The more noise, the better. And the other kid missed school because of how much the noise and the overcrowding of the lunchroom bothered him. I noticed that with the plan for the referendum, that we're not going to have little kids sweating. They don't concentrate really good when it's 80 degrees in the school. I also noticed that the rec department is going to change and the locations are going to change, but I looked at it carefully, and the amount of space for recreation is not going to be decreased. There is plenty of space for as much recreation as the community can handle. The most important thing I think I want to say is, I don't know if you know what windshield time is, but if you work in education and you drive from one place to another, that's called windshield time. That's when you're changing schools. I worked with student teachers a lot because I was at the university, and we had a lot of windshield time driving around. It's a complete waste of money. It's annoying to the employee, and you can waste as much as 15% of somebody's salary on windshield time. And you think, oh, that would just be art, music, and physical education in elementary. Oh, no. There's also psychologists, social workers, counselors, and not only are they wasting time going from one school to the other, if you're at the other school and somebody needs you there, too bad. Too bad. You just have to put your problems aside and wait until they get back to that school. So that is a huge thing, and I don't think the public knows how much money is going to be saved, because when you have fewer
5
schools,
seconds.
you don't have people driving. So I'm happy to say that I volunteer at Menominee, and the kids there laugh and giggle and have fun, and it's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jean. All right, next up, and hopefully I get everyone's names pronounced correctly tonight. Roxanne Gajewski.
Hello, Roxanne Gajewski, City of Oshkosh. I am here to discuss a Merrill Middle School student by the name of Denise Williams. Denise had an outgoing personality, an amazing smile, was a wonderful young lady. She was a member of the Great Kids Summer Program through the Boys and Girls Club. On July 6th of 2000, Denise and a group of students went on a field trip. They went tubing down the Wolf River. Denise drowned that day. She was 13 years old. Merrill students, staff, and the community came together, raised funds, donated funds to a memorial for Denise. A memorial tree was planted for Denise in the front of Merrill School. Funding was raised, dedication ceremony was done, Denise's tree was planted. And where is Denise's memorial tree now? Cut down, bulldozed, and destroyed with the rest of Merrill School. The district's now planning a mandated Historical Society memorial garden. In the garden, a tree is being dedicated to a young lady who passed away in 2010. I would like the district to add a second tree. I want you to fix the wrong that was done to Denise's memorial. Plant a tree for Denise along with a memorial plaque to replace the one that was destroyed in your need to build a track. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I was on that field trip.
I know. And here's her tree.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Ron Berry.
Ron Berry, Oshkosh, and the subject is the open statement by Beth last week. Perception is reality, which means optics are important. When the optics also show that the person was made the complaint has continually harassed Tim and Kelly for years and their election pages while openly supporting other opponents while claiming that they are only a concerned citizen. This is deceitful. Also kind of hypocritical when they run to their safe space when information are confronted on the page by supporters, Tim and Kelly, to forgive me for seeing this as nothing more than a, I can't read the damn thing. Apologize, guys.
However you want to do it.
Yeah.
Is there, you want to just go off cuff or? Up to you.
Yeah, I'll try to do my best. Basically, what ended up happening was between that, and then there was another speaker that last week that applauded the statement, but then when it came time to talk about what he was talking about, all he did is talk about the referendum, and that he continually attacked the misinformation and the situation that there was. So basically, not once has he nor anybody else on this board, when it came to saying, and I've seen a couple of you say that there's misinformation on this board, and not one you've ever given any kind of explanation what you think misinformation is. And then there's also, when it comes, I guess the one that really started to irritate me was, it's, you know, like I said, perception is reality. And then last week I seen two of the members on this board go after a week after they legal thing was made about this situation, suddenly say that, you know, that we need to try and change lawyers. To me, that's bowling. It comes off that way. It might not mean that way, but if you look what the optics are and the perception of it, and the timing of it, comes off as bowling. It comes off as, if you don't agree with the board, there will be hell to pay. And then basically what I didn't hear from anybody was the reasons that this has happened is where people are coming to the house of these individuals, people that were calling work and things like that. And there should be, I do not condone any kind of violence or any kind of, you know, on your personal life or your professional life. And I just think none of you have said that. Not a one of you yet last week said that maybe, you know, let's tone it down a little bit. Instead, you just all attacked them. So, I mean, that's what I see online, and I see that this is about the referendum.
Oh,
and I'll let it go.
Time is up.
Time's done, but thank you, Ron.
Yeah, I'll be back next week if I can, or next.
All right, thank you. So we will move on to agenda-related public forum. Gene Erdman?
No.
Nope, you're good? Okay, so we have no one else signed up for agenda-related public forum, so we can move on to the consent resolution agenda. Beth had already pulled 6 and 7 for them to be brought back at a later meeting time. Is there anyone else that wants to pull anything from the consent resolution?
Point of order, it would be too late at this point to do that.
Okay, good deal.
Because we already voted on the agenda.
Yeah.
Changes at the beginning of the meeting.
Okay. All right, let's, a motion to approve the consent resolution agenda.
So moved.
Second. Okay, Smeltney.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Carlin.
Aye.
DeWitt.
Aye.
Herzog.
Aye.
Hess.
Aye.
Resolution carries.
All right. So we will move on to individually considered resolutions. And the first being number 11, approval of petition to alter school district boundaries attached to Winneconne School District.
So move.
Second.
Hess and Carlin.
All right, discussion? Dr. Herzog?
Go ahead, Mr. Hess.
I got some questions about, I don't know, please.
Should we do that? And is it possible for Mr. Stafford to join too?
Well, sure.
Okay.
Well, I don't know if I get to make that determination
All right,
or not.
yes or no?
I mean,
Well,
I think, yeah, it just depends. At this point, I think it would be like that was the prior structure, right, at the beginning. So now it would just be questions, amongst the board. So probably not, I think, at this point.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
if there's
Just a quick question, because as the petitioner, I was not actually acting as just the public, but the petitioner, and I was told that I would not be available to answer questions at the beginning. So my question would be, am I able to answer questions now if there are further questions for clarification?
I would say if there's clarification, yeah, that would come up.
Thank you.
I personally didn't have any questions for him,
Yeah.
but I don't know that somebody else wouldn't, so I would encourage you to stay, but I don't get to decide that. I think the president does, or vice president.
If a pertinent question comes up where you can provide some clarification, I don't see that there would be a problem with that.
Thank you.
So,
I think in terms of questions, one, did we say that the Winneconne School District already considered this? Their board considered this or not?
correct, they did.
And their opinion was to accept or
To-
deny?
To grant.
To grant it, okay. And I'm hoping that maybe I had asked Mr. Nehans to talk a little bit about, my question is in regards to the financial implications of this one, and specifically on this one, to a fair extent, there's a fair number of people that are open enrolling from our district to the Winneconne district right now. So we talked about that. I'm wondering if you could kind of share your thoughts of what are the financial implications of open enrollment? How much money is the local property taxpayers paying on this, and how much of that goes to the, what happens under both scenarios is kind of what I was asking. If you could share that, that'd be great.
Sure. So Dr. Hess and I had a conversation earlier today about the financing part of open enrollment as it relates to this petition. So the way open enrollment works is the home school district gets to count the student enrollment on our revenue limit formula. So the students enrolled or that should be enrolled in the Oshkosh district, if you went by our boundaries, all get counted, and that's assigned a price tag right now for us for this year at $11,341 per FTE. And then the open enrollment calculator, that comes off of the aid at the last payment in June. And that, for this situation, Oshkosh would be sending a per student check of $8,962 to Winneconne per each of those students. So there is a 25
12-ish hundred difference between what the district actually has as our revenue formula and what we end up paying out for the open enrollment part.
So you're saying that to some extent, we're making money off of open enrollment?
Correct. There's about
that's
there's about a $2,500 difference in what we get from the taxing authority to what we pay out to the other district. It's not a dollar for dollar system.
But then to some extent, the local property taxpayer contributes to a portion of that, and then there's state aid that contributes to a portion of that. So to some extent, some of the local property taxpayers are contributing money that is going to Winnet County, but we discussed it's going to be difficult to kind of, maybe you did something more, but we.
No, I just made sure I had better clarity on my percentages, but that part that Dr. Hess is alluding to is, so in the whole formula, so the revenue limit, we get the $11,341. Of that amount, roughly 66% of that is paid from the state, and roughly the other 34% of that is paid locally from taxpayers. So again, this is the complicated part of the finance part of not all $11,000 we receive from the revenue limit for these students is local burden. About 66% of that is state burden. 34% is local burden.
And that's in general, that's.
Correct. This is very high-level, generalized financial information.
I think I have the same question, or I had a question along those same lines that I asked ahead of time as well, but I was looking at property value and the impact that it was on our property. Do you want to explain those numbers and what that means to you too, if you two remember them off the top?
Yeah, I don't have the, like.
It was 0.1.
So I was going to say, it's less than.
0.16%.
It's less than 1% of our total.
For this
I guess, again, what I would caution on that, just because it's a percentage-wise, it's a small percentage. It's still $13.5 million for roughly 10 kids.
What does that mean? What do you like?
The property value, there's a significant amount of properties with very few kids actually in school. We don't know how that changes in the future.
Okay.
So it's not just as easy as what percentage of that is within our taxing entity.
Okay.
I mean, I will say, I went and did a calculation and estimated that if we lost, it was 13.7 million relative to, we're at roughly 8.5 billion is the equalized value, that what it would do to a tax rate or a mill rate would be for somebody, for the remainder of the people that remain here, they now get a slightly bigger portion of the overall pie, and that somebody for a house valued at $100,000 would have to pay an additional $1.30. So that was the calculation that I did, and felt like that wasn't a big deal, but that's for all of us to decide.
Dr. Herzog?
Thank you. I'm reasonably familiar with the school district boundary process. Although we haven't had many requests during my tenure on the board for changing boundary lines or looking at a request for a detachment or for an attachment for that matter. What happens, and Mrs. Conrad outlined this in our electronic version today, it begins on page 15 and goes on to 16. If the two districts involved, it's usually two districts involved, it is tonight, both agree, then that's the end, and the property would be moved as of July 1st. If one of the districts objects, and usually it's the detaching district that objects, the attaching district rarely objects, in my experience, then the petitioner can ask that the state reconsider, and that goes to a committee through the Department of Public Instruction, and that committee is known as the School District Boundary Appeals Board. I have served on that board since 2017. And the way that works is I would never be assigned to one of the districts within our CISA district, but I would be assigned somewhere else. And I've been involved with small districts, large districts, and virtually everything in between. An important component of this, and this came up in the Facilities and Finance Committee, is that there are statutes that relate to this decision. And it's important that we take a look at those. We talk about following the law. We've talked about it in numerous meetings, and this is one example where we need to follow the law. So if you look at Mrs. Conrad's report, which begins on page 15 of your packet tonight, it's the last paragraph where she states, the following criteria is set forth in Wisconsin Statute 117.13, or 5, excuse me. In making any decisions, the school board and an appeal panel shall consider the following factors as they affect the educational welfare of all the children residing in all of the affected districts, and may consider other appropriate factors. We didn't really hear anything about geographical and topical characteristics, which is the first criterion. We didn't hear anything about Winneconne better serving the educational needs of these children. If, for the next one, would the detachment have an adverse effect on the program currently offered by the school district? We don't know that, but as I was asking earlier about the land to the north, that's farmland, which potentially could be developed into housing. And if that's moved into another district, we lose not only the property value, but we also lose those students coming into our district, which potentially could impact whether or not we can offer certain programs. We did see petitions, which could be defined as written statements. We have heard about the fiscal impact on the reorganization. I'm not clear on whether or not it makes it. It doesn't. It looks to me like it's an island because you've got that farmland to the north. And we didn't hear anything about the socioeconomic level or racial composition of the students, which is the next criterion. Mm-hmm. And finally, the results of any referendum. So administration has recommended a no vote on this detachment, and I believe we need to support that given the statutory criteria that we're supposed to observe. I'm sympathetic to the safety of the children who want to open enroll in Winneconne and want to ride the bus. That's not one of the factors that the law requires us to take a look at. I can tell you from my experience in serving on the School District Boundary Appeals Board that the Appeals Board will take these criteria very seriously, and that will form the basis of their decision. And so I strongly recommend that we follow the law and that we follow the recommendation of administration to deny this request.
There's nothing illegal about that, though, and it's not an island at all by any means.
Well, we're not going to discuss.
Point of order.
So, I mean, I think there's a fair point of, we did not get a report from admin on all of those bullet points. They aren't required to, so, and it sounds to me that should be their duty in the evaluation of this. So one of my questions that I did have written was, what is the distance to the OASD schools versus the Winneconne schools in this? Because I mean, I drive those roads, but it's in the country. Which is closer, and is it significant difference, and what's the accessibility for that?
So from a
Julie, or Dr. Conrad Peters.
Yeah, Mrs. Conrad. When you think about it, it can go either way. The choice is that the distance to Winneconne is shorter for them, for the students that reside in that area. And once again, the transportation has been an issue and has been brought up before and in front of this board as far as picking up children at different bus and transportation points.
And I would just note that the criteria state that the board shall consider the following factors. It's not may, it's shall.
Well, right, but we also didn't, it's not just, if the board, if admin is making a recommendation to us, they made an incomplete recommendation then. It's not necessarily on what was presented by others. So I don't know that we can say, and that's why I was asking for more information for it. And
I get it.
And I'm trying to get, like, I'm much more inclined to grant this partially. I wish we had taken other steps to get people happier to stay in our district along the way. And I think there's some consequences to that. And that's where I'm leaning on this right now.
So can I?
Go, Dr. Hess.
Okay,
Question.
thank you. We had talked about, I think, one of the struggles that I have is the petition has the legal description of the area that is to be covered. And it effectively, I think, has 2 streets and then says up to this point, and anything to the east of that would be covered. And so in one of the graphs, you got it as a rectangle, because the legal description seems to define it that way.
Correct.
But then the city clerk or township clerk or?
The Town of Inland Clerk.
Town of Inland Clerk then went in and put a bunch of parcels in there. And the parcels don't include everything that might be defined in that rectangle. But the problem is, if you look at that rectangle, it literally would cut some parcels in half, and you can't accept a half a parcel into the district or not. So there's this confusion about what is in and what is not in when I look at the petition. And I go, on the one hand, I feel like the petitioner wrote down their best faith effort of what they thought it would be, and they went to the township, and the township had to certify and say, yep, this was sufficient, and then included all these parcels, and all the parcels don't include everything that's in that legal description. So I have a struggle with, it seems like there's 2 different potential versions of what we're even talking about in the first place. Like when I looked at the detail, I did go in and look at the GIS, and there were those 2 landlocked properties that looked like farmland, and one of them was actually owned by one of the owners along that street. And so I'm left with, in my mind, that should have been attached, but I don't know why the Town of Inland person didn't do that. So in my mind, I am struggling with what it is that we're voting on in the first place. I feel like it wasn't the petitioner's fault. I understand we as a district are left in this really awkward position of we shouldn't be defining it.
So the, if I may,
Yeah.
the issuance of the order, if you go to the actual resolution, is based on what the Town of Inland Clerk put in there as a description, which is the road boundaries. That's what put on there. Winneconne School District, when they approved granting the issuance of the order, they approved it based on the petitioner's description that was at the top. So that's what Winneconne approved. So when you're looking at the issuance of the order, the petition, it's based on the description that the Town of Inland Clerk had put up at the top and agreed. When they went through, all of the parcels were then attached with their taxing piece, and then put together to make up. That is the electors or the owners within that area that have signed that particular petition. In addition to that, yesterday, there was clarification from the Town of Inland Clerk for one more additional property that was like the blue X on the map that was put in there as the revision, which actually connects directly to the Winneconne School District. So there is the parcel piece, but the board would be deciding based on the petitioner's description in the top box, because that's what was put forward.
So the blue X wouldn't move?
The blue X is included in that rectangle boundary.
But what do we do with the rectangle boundary, the parcels that are literally cut in
Can I
half.
clarify that the line already?
Point of order.
We got to keep this discussion amongst the
Question
board.
of truth of what's being proposed, and I feel like I'm here with knowledge.
Well, you
I'm
could go
sorry.
tell Julie, but we're going to keep this discussion here. We're going to keep the discussion amongst the board.
I can ask my question while they're
Okay, Stephanie?
clarifying. So I always say what is best for students. And so the gentleman we heard from this evening kind of tugged at my heartstrings because it's students. We are here for students, students first. And it does sound like this would be a better situation for these students. But that said, the recommendation from administration is to deny it. My question is, how much revenue will we lose if we approve this? Because I know the property
There's 12,
value
there's 12 students.
is
There's 12 students total.
So you're saying from a revenue standpoint for students, or
Yeah.
how much in the tax base that
Both.
we would lose?
both.
So 13 million, a little bit over $13 million in the tax base for the Oshkosh taxpayers. That would be $13 million that we wouldn't be able to collect from and levy from.
Mhm.
So that's, I mean, I consider that a significant amount.
Mhm.
And then from a revenue standpoint,
And the revenue, it's the 11,341 times.
Times 12.
The amount of kids that are open enrolling.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
then we give back roughly $9,000 of that per
Mhm.
student to Winneconne.
Mm-hmm. So it's substantial.
So if I go back to when we talked with when I spoke with the town of Inland clerk yesterday, the intention of the petitioners was to detach the parcels. I know the description had the street pieces, so that's where the clarification, thus the map that was provided that marked every single parcel, along with the addition or the amendment of the parcel that came forward by the town of Inland clerk. That actually is adjacent or butts up to the Winneconne School District.
Other thoughts? Dr. Hess?
I mean, my general sentiment behind all of this is that I am elected to try to make decisions for people that don't have the time to evaluate all of this, to attend all these meetings, to do all that stuff. But when the community can weigh in on it, then I feel like they should do so, and that I shouldn't be circumventing their will. And in this particular case, I go, here's a collection that is, I believe, contiguous or touching the border. It makes sense to me if it is the way that I think it should be. It's not clear to me that that is the boundary. I'm not quite sure what it is, but I feel like the intent of what they tried to do made sense to me in terms of the boundaries. And so I feel like I shouldn't be, if here we got a collection of individuals that want to make a decision, I don't feel like I should be the one blocking them from doing that. So I am leaning towards supporting this. I also feel like the 13.9 million, whatever it is, 13,748, I don't think that puts a significant burden back onto the remaining taxpayers. I think, I calculated it at roughly $1.30 per $100,000. I feel like if that's their will, when it's a collection of individuals, I can support that. It didn't create an island. They're doing it anyways. I do understand, I think, Mr. Neons, you kind of told me today, if we approve this, well, how many other people? I get that angst, but I don't know. I'm leaning towards supporting it.
You mean voting no, because we're not voting.
No,
a yes vote would be to approve it and support it, a no vote would be to deny it.
Correct, yeah.
So I would be
Other-
leaning towards approving it and saying yes.
Other thoughts?
I guess I would just want to, I am in agreement with that, and I'm also, I think this is a good eye-opener to the district of if we do not meet the needs of students in our district, and there's I understand they're saying that they do not have bad sentiments about us.
Right.
They are choosing to open enroll to Winneconne right now. Take that for what it is. And I think there are some extenuating circumstances of they are closer to Winneconne. I want us to remember that we need to try to prevent these kind of things coming to us in the future. And that means figuring out ways to best serve students.
And I would piggyback off of what both Dr. Hess and Molly have said. I'm leaning to vote to approve this as well. I think transportation alone is enough for me.
I am not going to approve this, mainly because I've never been on a government board yet that has approved land transfers, and then 10 years later, they were happy about it. An example I'll give is how the town of Algoma is probably given, through different agreements, a quarter of its land at least away to the city of Oshkosh. The service that would be gained through approving this and allowing these properties to detach is transportation. Other than that, all those kids that would like to detach are already in the Winneconne School District, and that is their right through open enrollment. My son, when I was driving him to his specialized class, because he didn't want to go to his home school today, and like I do every day, I drove him 15 minutes on my own and then 15 minutes home. And that's something that I chose to do because I enrolled him into a different program. So I don't see this situation being vastly different than that. And that area out there is going to grow. My wife works there, that right in that area, that hub. We have we have family members that own farms on that hub out on Riff Road. My wife's family grew up out in that area, the Budamore area. In fact, one of her cousins is on, or had been on the Winneconne School Board for a long time. And I am put on this board to decide what's best for Oshkosh Area School District. And I don't think that parceling away land or setting the precedent of parceling away land is in the school district's best long-term interest. Because someone could go and buy a bunch of that property around there tomorrow, or a bunch of those homes, and there are developers that are planning on building out there because they've talked to me. And it could change that whole, the whole area. So that, I think the public deserves my rationale for why I'm not going to support this. And I probably will never support a land transfer out of OASD the whole time I'm on the board, from any which direction or place. And I'll just be upfront and clear about that. And the board may choose to do something different, and that's the board's will and the people's will. But I'm making this decision for those reasons. So thank you. Stephanie?
Thank you for those points. I think that was very well said. And I will also be voting no for this. And my reasons are, number one, I'm concerned about the precedent that we will be creating. Number two, I am concerned about the financial implications, especially at a time when we are asking the community to support a referendum. I feel like the optics on that we're giving away land is not in sync with what we're trying to do. And I also will be voting no because of some of the things that Dr. Herzog shared. We shall follow the law on this. And this is a difficult vote for me because I do hear what they're saying, but at the end of the day, I'm responsible to the Oshkosh taxpayers who elected me. And I just feel like I need to vote no, so thank you.
Any other thoughts?
I would say I don't take this decision lightly. I know there's work involved in applying to the appeals level and the petitioners who have the right to do that. And maybe the appeals board would view it differently, but I too am trying to act in the best interests of the entire district here. Thank you.
I'm just going to ask a point of order, I guess, because we have 6 people here. Since what happens? It sounds like it's going to be a tie. What happens if it's a tie?
It would be a denial, so it would need to get a majority in order to be approved,
Okay.
and then go to a potential appeals process.
Okay.
Ready?
All right, yep, call the question.
Right.
No.
Carlin?
No.
DeWitt? Yes. Herzog?
No.
Hess?
Aye.
Smeltney?
Aye.
Resolution fails.
We'll move on to number 12, approval of petition to alter school district boundaries attached to Amro School District.
Motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Anyone have any discussion?
I think it's the same. My views are pretty much the same.
Okay.
It was the recommendation of the administration to deny. I'll just point that out, and that's all I'll say at this point.
Same.
What was this is the Amro, and they
Yes,
approved
this
it?
would be currently the Malkys, their property is in the Oshkosh Area School District. The 3 children open enroll to the Amro School District, and so it would be detaching from Oshkosh and attaching to Amro.
And Amro voted on this?
Amro has not voted on
They have
this.
not voted on this, okay. I mean, I can understand the will of a bunch of people wanting to uniformly do it together. I'm struggling with, in this case, a single parcel. So I think in that case, I don't feel like we should be entertaining every single parcel that technically is on the border coming to us asking to come off. I think at some point there's got to be an efficiency in the decision-making process. So unfortunately on this one, I think I'm turning to no.
I don't disagree. My comments, because this is the one where I said jig-jags or whatever, too, and I would just encourage the district and all of the local municipalities and school districts to start thinking about this proactively, because we know that there is development in all the communities surrounding Oshkosh, and I think that some boundaries will likely change. And as we've learned with working with the city of Oshkosh and the county, there's a lot that can work a lot better if we are proactive in figuring these out and have those relationships in place to try to come to the better solutions for not one parcel at a time figuring this out.
All right, thank you. Any other? No? Okay.
Carlin?
Aye. Oh, I'm sorry, no.
DeWitt?
Aye.
Herzog?
No.
Hess?
No.
Smeltney?
Aye.
Right.
No.
Resolution fails.
All right, on to number 13, approval petition to alter school district boundaries detached from Amro School District. Questions or thoughts?
Motion and a second.
Motion, so moved.
Second.
So to clarify on this one is from detaching from Amro and accepting into the Oshkosh Area School District. So this is the opposite direction.
And the proposal was
To deny
deny this
because
as well.
making of an island, correct?
And it is an island. This one is truly an island.
This one is truly an island.
Thoughts? Questions? No? Okay.
DeWitt?
No.
Herzog?
No.
Hess?
No.
Smeltney?
No.
Wright?
No.
Carlin?
No.
Resolution fails.
All right, any requests for future agenda items?
Me.
Yes?
I would like facilities and finance. We heard from she almost made me cry regarding Denise's tree. I would like the facilities and finance to look into replacing that tree. And thank you for coming.
Okay. All right. We can add that to that agenda. Any other requests for future agenda items?
I'll reiterate my call for a comprehensive review of discipline disparities and the role of SROs and how we are doing discipline within our district.
All right, thank you. Any other ones? No? Okay, any announcements?
Sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to say thank you to Roxanne for coming in. You hit a plethora of memories that are tough to swallow once in a while, but I appreciate you coming in and sharing that. And Denise is definitely missed. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly, and thank you, Roxanne. Any other announcements?
I just have one.
Okay.
Oshkosh North is hosting the District Solo and Ensemble Contest. This is an annual musical event. It's this coming Saturday, March 1st. I believe it starts at 8 in the morning. They are expecting over 800 students from throughout the Fox Valley. And they are in need of volunteers, as was announced at last night's North Band concert. So if you'd like further information to see how you could participate, you could call the district office at 920-424-0395 and be forwarded to North. There are still opportunities to make this a memorable and successful event for 800 students throughout the area, including Oshkosh students. Thank you.
All right, any other announcements? Thank you, Dr. Herzog.
You're welcome.
No?
Move to adjourn.
All right, move to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second that one. I'm sorry.
Second DeWitt. Yeah, first Carl and second DeWitt. Yep.
All right, so we have Herzog.
Aye.
Hess.
Aye.
Snowden.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Carlin.
Aye.
DeWitt. Aye. Meeting is adjourned.
Good job, Chris.
Okay.